Well, so today we are here for a civic break. We started the civic break as part of our anniversary celebration. These are short, accessible briefings that cut through the noise on timely civic and policy issues that shape our community, locally, regionally, and nationally. I'm thrilled today to introduce our guest and friend, Kristen Hansen. She is Wisconsin State Lead for the Fair Election Center, and she's going to be sharing her insights specifically as it relates to Wisconsin's spring election. So, Kristen, welcome, and thank you so much for taking your time to be with us.
You are welcome, and I'm delighted to be here. Here we go. You should be seeing slides. Since this is a timely situation and it's a relatively small group of us, please just unmute and interrupt me if you have a question, but we will have time for questions at the end if you can wait until the end. So, spring elections, do not sit this one out. We have historically in Wisconsin have had these spring nonpartisan elections between about 2006 and 2014. We were looking at an average of 12% turnout in those vitally important elections, which is pathetic. We did get up to 52% turnout in 2025, which was a record that broke the previous record, which was 40% in 2023. And that is 52% of the voting age population, not 52% of voters. But still, we like to see those numbers continue to climb. This is just a disclaimer that the Fair Election Center, being a public interest law firm, I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. Consider yourself informed. Okay, quickly, the Fair Elections Center is an organization based in Washington, D.C. We have staff on the ground in about 13 states, including Wisconsin. I live in Waukesha. We are nonpartisan and we are dedicated to safeguarding the future of democracy through voting rights. You can see our vision there. We hope to put ourselves out of a job by making democracy so broad and so accessible that no one questions it anymore. We'll see if that happens during any of our lifetimes. We do have 3 projects. One of them is the Voting Rights Project. That's the group of lawyers who do litigation, research, and policy. And then the Campus Vote Project, which is my main function, which is institutionalizing voter engagement on college and university campuses across the state. I have about 22 campuses I work with right now. And then the Work Elections Project recruits poll workers. You'll start to see more about poll worker recruitment for the fall as we go on. If you want to learn more, fairelectionscenter.org. So we are going to talk about the importance of spring elections, what's on your ballot, how you can research these candidates. Notorious spring candidates often have no information out there about who they are, what they stand for, why they're running, none of that. So I will give you a few tips. We'll talk specifically about the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which is the only thing that all of us have on our ballot. Everyone in the state can vote for the Supreme Court election, and then we'll talk a little bit about how to vote. We have 4 elections in even years. So if it seems like there's always an election, you're not wrong. So in this, we have what we call spring elections. The primary, if there is one needed, is in February. Then the April is the general spring election. We will have a fall primary in August, on August 11th. That will narrow down all of the people running for governor and assembly and Senate and Congress and all of that to just 2 people, or I should say 1 person per party, going into the November election, which is November 3rd. You'll hear a lot about the November election. This is what we call the midterms. Everyone in the assembly in Wisconsin will be on the ballot. Half of the people in the Senate will be on the ballot. And all of our constitutional officers will be on the ballot in November. Lots going on there. I could come back and talk about that. We call the spring elections nonpartisan, which means people are not designated by the party under whose banner they are running, but they tend to fall into liberal or conservative, depending on the race. They've become more partisan as time has gone on, but they are technically nonpartisan. No D's or R's or L's or C's behind people's names on the ballot. We will have a Supreme Court election every year now until 2030, just because that's the way it falls. So get used to it. Every single spring, we're going to have a statewide Supreme Court election. If you really want to dig into details of elections and calendar, you can go to the Wisconsin Elections Commission website. This is a laundry list, haha, no pun intended, I will be at laundry night on Monday, of all of the things that are reliant on these spring elections. People tend to think Supreme Court, okay, that's important. But too many people sit out the spring elections because they think if it's not statewide or it's not federal, it's not as important. I beg to disagree. All of these things are reliant on the folks we are electing in these spring elections. Depending on where you live, your ballot's going to look different. I know that in the city of Milwaukee, there's a lot of uncontested races. Your primary race is the Supreme Court. But out here where I live in Waukesha, we've got judicial write-in campaigns, we've got school boards, we've got mayors, we've got common council, we've got county board, just lots of things. All of this stuff that impacts your day-to-day life is affected by who you vote for and who wins these spring elections. So if you want to know what is on your ballot, I've heard that you guys talk about my favorite website, myvote.wi.gov. You can go to My Vote, and these are all of the things that you can do. So you can, of course, register to vote if you have a Wisconsin driver's license or a Wisconsin ID. You can update your address or your name. You can find your polling place. This is really important because a lot of polling places have changed. So it's like I said, out here in Waukesha, we used to have 14 polling places, one for each aldermanic district. They've got it down to 9, and a lot of them are new spaces. So do look at that. You can still get an absentee ballot. I wouldn't at late date, but because early voting's open. But if you click on what's on my ballot, this is just a sample. This is what the top of it looks like. I couldn't fit the whole thing on the page, but it'll tell you what ward you're in. It will tell you literally what your ballot is going to look like when you go to vote or if you get a ballot in the mail. And you notice that up at the top, you can print it. So if you have a lot of things on your ballot or you really want to like put it aside and study it, you can print your ballot out and take a look at it before you actually go to vote. And by the way, it's perfectly legal to bring a cheat sheet into the polling place with you. So if you got a long list on your ballot, and in the fall you will, you can bring that with you and remind yourself who you're voting for. So this is my list. And again, just using it as an example, these are the folks who are running for school board in Waukesha. There are 6 people, 3 seats. They're kind of running as trios, kind of not. But if you just look at this, unless you are super well connected in the school district, you're not going to know who these people are. Only one, no, that's a lie. 2 of these people are incumbents. Their names might look familiar, again, if you actually pay attention. The rest of them, brand new candidates. This often happens. The smaller the community, the more often the person does not do much to advertise the fact that they are running for office, and you do want to do research. I still hear horror stories about people who say, I just voted for the first 3, or I voted for the bottom 3, or I voted for all the women, or I voted for all the men. Like, you should actually know who you're voting for. So how do we find out who these people are? This is literally how my friends and I do this. Obviously, just Google them. Google the name and the city that they're in, or at least at least Wisconsin. Try to find something out about that person. Oftentimes, if they have a campaign website, that will come up when you Google them. The other thing that might come up is interviews that they've done local papers. The only thing that a little bit of criticism I will give to the newspapers, as much as we love it when they interview candidates, because sometimes that's the only information that's out there about it, they often do not publish those interviews until right before the election. So if you've got a ballot in the mail and you're sitting on that ballot, that's a little late. I have actually persuaded them over time to push them a little bit sooner because they were coming out right before the general election when we've already had, over a week of early voting. But sometimes you can find those. You can look at the endorsement lists if they post them on their website or somewhere else, because that might give you an idea. If you really like someone who they've been endorsed by, okay, maybe I do like this candidate. Maybe this candidate shares my values. They may have paid ads or mailers that they have done themselves or that other people have done on their behalf. That can give you a little hint that this person shares your values and maybe is the right person for you to vote for. There is a general vibe on some of these campaign websites, and I didn't want to show you because I don't want to sway people one way or the other as far as voting, but sometimes the general vibe of the website is bizarre. There's a couple of people running kind of together, school board and common council, uh, in a community out here in Waukesha County. The whole website looks like Pete Hegseth made it. It's red, white, and blue, flags, eagles, all of this crazy stuff. They're running for school board. It's like, is that the vibe you want from a school board candidate? You're running to make the lives of children better. Why? What's up with that? Like, to me, that's the kind of thing, as a voter, personally, I will look at and say, do you even have children? Do you have children in the district? You would be shocked at the number of people who run and win for school board who do not have children or who send their children to private school. Why are you running for a public school board? That would be a question I would ask to that candidate. Lots of details are a good sign. Make sure that what the person is putting on their website or on their social media or wherever you see them is actually related to the position that they're running for. Again, an example that I'm seeing out here, someone who's running to be a county board supervisor, but all of the issues that he talks about are city issues, not county issues. You get that job, sir, you will not be able to do anything about all those issues you say you care about. Those are city issues. So talk about civic breaks. Learning what the job actually is important as a voter so that you can say, this person clearly does not understand what he's even running for, he or she. If you seem like you like that person, sign up early as you can for their newsletters. You'll get more information. You'll get maybe notification of events where you can actually go and meet them. I am a big fan of going to meet the people who are running so that you can, again, feel them out. Is this someone who I trust with my children? Is this someone who I trust running my city or town or village? Check social media for their campaign or personal sites. You might come up with something. This is a big thing blowing up in, I think, Maine right now. Someone who's running and they looked at his personal Facebook page, I think it was, and as recently as 6 months ago had some very questionable stuff on there where you might say, is this a person who's earned my vote? These are very strange comments that they've made. I like to look at LinkedIn because, again, sometimes that gives me a hint. Is this person, do they have good budget experience? Are they a project manager? That tells me that they know how to do all these different things. Are they an educator and they're running for school board? That makes sense. Like, see what you can be. You got to be a little Nancy Drew, but if you really want to get into it, you can do all of these things. And of course, there are still occasionally forums and debates, but sadly, those are fewer and far further between than they used to be. Again, because some folks will not go to a League of Women Voters forum because they've decided the league is too far left. They won't go to this other forum because they've decided those people are too right. We're still working on ways to get folks to come to forums. So, the Supreme Court, this is the premier election on everybody's ballot. Chris Taylor versus Maria Lazar. They are pretty well matched. It's interesting. There is no incumbent, and there won't be next year either. So both open races this year and next year. They're both female appeals court judges. So, and they both have a partisan political history. Chris Taylor as an elected official, Maria as working for a governor in an attorney general's office. So they're kind of matched up pretty evenly. I will say I like to remind folks that this is a 10-year term. That's a really long time. So if you're thinking like every 2 years, if you don't like your assembly member, you get a chance to replace them in 2 years. Not so with the Supreme Court. It's a long term. And we do get to elect our Supreme Court justices. Many states the justices are appointed by the governor or the Senate. Some of them have what we call the retention process, where you get elected once, and then at the end of the term, the people vote to retain you or not. Different processes in different states, but I think because we actually get to elect our Supreme Court members, we should take that opportunity and vote. Lazar is generally seen as the conservative justice, Taylor as a liberal, but like I said, they're pretty well matched as far as experience and everything else goes. The status of the court, the lien of the court will not change based on this election, but that doesn't mean it's not important. And we do remind people that in 2019, that this Supreme Court race was decided by only 6,000 votes. The number of elections in the spring that are decided by very, very small margins is huge, just because the districts are smaller. You might have read that in Boca Raton, Florida, the mayoral race was decided by one vote. One vote. They did a recount and got it up to 5, but that's still a really small number. So sitting home in the spring should not be something you should be doing. Your vote literally might make the difference in some of these races. I recommend when it comes to the Supreme Court that you go to guides.vote. They will also likely have guides for our fall races like governor, attorney general, maybe a couple of key congressional races. The guides are available in English and Spanish. You can get them for free if you want printed ones. This is an organization that has teams of journalists and lawyers who very carefully craft these guides, excuse me, to be unbiased, and everything is cited. So if you go to the website, you will see you can click on everything it says about that person and what their stance on an issue is, because everything is cited. So I would say if you're trying to help folks get out the vote, and by the way, in the last Marquette Law poll, 53% of registered voters had not made up their mind yet about the Supreme Court. Please do push out the guides.vote on this in your personal circles. Because it's unbiased, you don't have to have like a side. You don't have to say you're pushing one candidate or another. Just say, hey, if you haven't made up your mind yet, here's some information about both of these fabulous candidates. So early voting is open now. Again, the city of Milwaukee has its own elections commission. Everywhere else, you are going to your municipal website to find out what the deal is with early voting. The clerks are able to set their own days and hours when it comes to early voting, so it does change municipality to municipality. Sometimes they have weekend hours. Usually they don't, especially in the spring. But take a look at that, and you can go in there, and you're essentially doing is you're voting absentee early, so you're voting just like you would have gotten the ballot at home. They'll give you the ballot in an envelope. You fill out the ballot, put it in the envelope, sign it, and then the person working at the clerk's office will be your witness. If you have a ballot at home right now because you signed up for them, which I highly recommend, You should make sure that you get that witness signature and address on there because your ballot can be removed if you do not have a 18-year-old or more like voting compliance or person that signs your ballot envelope, not the ballot itself, the envelope, and puts their name and their address on it. So that's something that is important. The law currently states that the clerk may call to correct if they can call you and say, hey, your witness signature isn't correct or whatever, but they don't have to. We're working on changing that so that they have to. But for now, just make sure that you do that. I always suggest that you go to My Vote and check your registration status before you go to vote. If you're not registered or you moved and you forgot to change your registration, you can be prepared to register to vote when you get there. We are super lucky that we have day of voter registration in Wisconsin. A lot of states do not. Some states, you have to be registered to vote weeks before the election. And if you miss that registration deadline, too bad for you, you can't vote. It's a major issue. And as I mentioned before, a lot of polling places have changed. These are my favorite websites. I understand they're going to send these out to you along with the slide deck. My Vote, of course, myvote.wi.gov, the official website for voting in Wisconsin. Everything you need to know is there. The Campus Vote Project website is the one for the Campus Vote Project of the Fair Election Center. And the reason that I like this is because we have this handy dandy map that has the state voting guides for the entire country on it. So obviously for yourself or anyone else, that's handy. But also that means if you have a child at college, you can go on here and find out what they need to vote wherever they go to school. College students are the only group of citizens who are allowed to choose to either vote in the state that they're from. I try to say like where your family lives, or the state that they are going to school in. They can choose one or the other. So if you go to the Wisconsin one, there's all kinds of stuff in here about updates and resources and a full detailed state voting guide to help you do anything you want to do about voting. And like I said, those exist for every single state. So again, if you have a child or a grandchild or young person in your life, make sure that they vote wherever they are. I include the League of Women Voters because they are absolutely a gold star organization when it comes to voting. Wisconsin's League of Women Voters in particular is quite good. Vote411.org is the League of Women Voters candidate information site. They send surveys out to all candidates, all of them. If they respond, the responses are on that website. If they don't respond, they at least send you to something that's out there about the candidate. And then, of course, guides.vote I talked about. So that's it. That's my
Wonderful,
that's my
wonderful.
story.
That's awesome. Thanks, Kristen. Really appreciate it. Right on schedule with just a few minutes left. I'm interested in the audience. You mentioned that there will be some conversation now about securing poll volunteers. I'm curious,
Yeah.
how many here today are or have been a poll worker?
Oh, good question.
Anyone? Okay. Oh, one. All right. We got one.
Amy, of course.
Oh,
Amy's my friend. Yeah.
yeah, of course. Okay.
I
Well, I
couldn't
guess,
figure out how to express that. So
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Amy, for participating in my makeshift poll that acknowledges you're a poll worker. Thank you for doing that. Perhaps others will consider being poll workers in their local communities.
I think it's something everyone should do once. I mean, just so you can speak from experience when you tell people these are very secure elections. There's not a lot of ways to cheat like they try to make it sound.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, you can be an election observer. Anyone can observe elections. So that's a whole other thing that you can do. The league, again, has a famous election observer program.
Yes, thank you, Kristen, for saying that. Also, I just want to say that there was a press conference this week at City Hall. 5 or 6 different organizations talked about the SAVE Act that is now right now before the Senate. If you haven't already done so, I suggest that you explore the SAVE Act and perhaps then call your senators to express your opinion. I will say the thing I learned at the press conference this week was that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security will be approving the voter polls. They will be reviewing the list and deciding if the people on the list are eligible to vote. And that means all of us, you and me and everyone else that's already registered. It's not only for that part of the SAVE Act would not be only for new registered voters. That would be for every registered voter, would have to be approved by Homeland Security. So
That's terrifying.
that was concerning to me as the one piece. I mean, there are many other things that are concerning for me personally, but that was new information for me. So I would encourage you to do the same, explore the SAVE Act, and then follow through with a call to your senators. There are 2. That's only 2 phone calls. And then I will also say that in addition to inviting you to laundry night officially, which is on Monday, it's at Ruby Tap in Wauwatosa, starts at 6 this month because Ruby Tap has limited hours and closes at 8. We moved the start of this to 6 p.m. So if you're usual, please come at 6. If you register, of course, you get a lovely reminder email from me, or you can just show up and that is perfectly fine. There'll be additional chances to talk to Kristen and anyone else that was here today about their reaction. The other thing I will say is please, I will send you a survey link tomorrow regarding today, and I will just ask if you could complete the survey in a timely fashion. It gives us great feedback, not only to share with Kristen about how great she was today in sharing her insights, but also gives us guidance as to the value of Civic Break to the individual attendees. Of course, as always, it will be posted on our website, the full recording. Andrea will also be putting it in our social media in the next day or 2. So look for us, engage, respond, and help us advance gender equity. So thanks so much for participating today. I will stay in the meeting until 1:15. If you have more questions or want to talk about something, I'm happy to stay with you.